Sunday Golds, Aria Masudi, and Brett Nevitt. It is Thursday, October 30th, a pre-Halloween edition of Sunday Golds, and we are happy to be back here in the middle of fall baseball, almost wrapping up. And they've already played a couple of games, a couple exhibitions. They've played, I think, a total of something now like 26 innings or so, 25 or 26 innings. Played some good competition. Mississippi State, who I think Brett and I both, well, when we get into it, both have high opinions of what Brian O'Connor's first year in Starkville will look like and their opportunity to make Omaha. And I thought Florida State played really well, all things considered, in that scrimmage in Pensacola. And then they played UAB out of the American Conference, and Florida State dominated those two games, those two mini scrimmages. So a lot to get to. There's one Garnet and Gold game left to be played, a 7-inning contest and a home run derby. That happening on Friday, October 31st. So Halloween night, fall FSU baseball for those of you who want to make it out to Hauser. But Brett, I think, we've now had an opportunity to see these guys pitch against and hit against teams that are not them, right? Not players on the same team. They're not teammates. And we've gotten a pretty good glimpse, I think, at least of a baseline expectation of what some of these guys can do.
Yeah, I think it was really good for me to get my first looks at this team in the new group this year. Obviously, a lot of new guys, like there will be every year, and like we've seen the last couple of years. You'd gotten to see them a few times in inter-squad scrimmages already, but like you said, it's always good to see them go and actually play someone else. And this is the third straight year you've played an SEC team in the first game of fall to really test where you're at. And I think it's really good to just to give you an idea of kind of what you have and what you need to get better at. And it went really similarly in Pensacola to the way it's gone against these SEC teams both the last 2 years. You lost that first game in a pretty heavy pitchers duel, and then you won the second game and kind of even out the score over the 14 innings. So, it was good to see them bounce back in the second one. And then, in the UAB game, you got down actually in the sixth inning of the first game. So you were actually tested a little bit and you had to answer offensively, and you did with a really big inning. So that was good to see as well. And don't want to take too much away from just a few looks. So, we'll go probably individual takeaways guy by guy, but try not to take away too much, but also learn what we can from the few looks that we've gotten to this point. And overall, I think I was pretty impressed with the group and where they're at. It seemed like they're already pretty well gelled together. And at this point, you're just trying to figure out a few pieces of where you're going to put those pieces in, both on the mound and positionally.
Definitely agree with that. And I do also believe, scores don't really matter. So we won't really get into what the final scores were. And they weren't even officially kept in terms of what the teams came away with. So I thought they played well. But before we get into that, Brett, I want to thank people for listening on Apple Pods, on Spotify, those of you listening on your favorite podcast streaming site. And now you can watch Sunday Golds. Brett's got this pretty cool feature here with StreamYard, and he's putting it up on his YouTube as well. So those of you who can see us, we'll have some highlights, I think, as well from the Pensacola match against Mississippi State. So some cool new features this year on Sunday Gold. Brett and I, for the most part, will be doing it remotely from different spots, but that presents some cool new opportunities and some toys that we have that we can play with here on the visual. So yeah, man, excited about that. Want to say thanks to those of you who've been listening now, and we're excited about the 2026 season. It was really nice in the middle of this football season to be able to kind of take a break and watch some baseball. So let's start with the Pensacola match. And I think in that one, you got a little bit of a idea of where the staff right now, the coaching staff, feels like some of these guys are. They told me point blank it was an A and a B team that they started in both of the games, not just in Pensacola, but as well in Tallahassee against UAB and Hauser. We didn't see Wes Mendez pitch. That was by design. They were not going to throw him in either of the scrimmages against either of those two teams. But we did see what could potentially be parts of the weekend rotation in 2026 and guys that they really like. And Brett, I think, you sent me your notes, and it kind of matches my notes as well. Bryson Moore was a standout for me, right? The transfer from Virginia who comes in, fastball was in the low 90s. It seems like he's got some room in the tank for a little bit more velocity as well. And the breaking balls really stood out too. That was not a name going into fall ball that I thought would compete for a weekend rotation spot, but coming out of fall ball, I do believe he's in the thick of it to be one of those 3 guys on the weekend.
Yeah, I think Beard, obviously Trey Beard was the big name coming out of the portal for FSU, being the #1 portal arm per D1 baseball. But the name I'd been hearing a lot about going into my first look at this group was Bryson Moore, and just really rave reviews about what he was doing for them, and fastball working into the mid-90s. But really, the highlight has been the ability to spin the baseball, both with a big curveball and also a slider. And I think we saw that against Mississippi State. I think he got 6 or 7 whiffs against them. Wasn't exactly executing the finished pitches all the time consistently, and gave up a couple runs on a misplayed fly ball. But I think overall you have to be really excited about the stuff and the frame for Moore. I think, it was hard to know exactly what you were getting with Moore because of the injuries the last 2 years and the shortened years that he's had at Virginia, back-to-back years. But I think just the amount of starts and opportunities he was getting when he was healthy as a young arm at Virginia for O'Connor kind of speaks volumes as to what they thought he could be. And I think the stuff last year was down a tick for Moore because of the injuries. And from when he was talking to you guys on the broadcast, it sounded like it had to do with the lower body, and that he worked on fixing that this year to be able to maintain health. So like you said, I do think there's still some more room in there with velocity as well. But as of now, he's definitely a heavy candidate to be in that weekend rotation group along with Beard and Mendez.
Yeah, and those of you watching right now on the visual medium, Brett's got highlights. Man, it never ceases to amaze me, man, how good your cameras are and how good you are at your job in the detail. So those of you enjoying it right now, you're seeing highlights from behind center field, almost like a TV broadcast of Bryson Moore, and the breaking ball's real. I like the way that he competed too, Brett. It seemed like a kid that was not phased. I think he gave up a couple runs against Mississippi State on a misplay in the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
It was a windy day out there. It was swirling, and it's a new park right there on the for the players, but it's also on the Gulf, which is a beautiful setting to watch a baseball game. But I think a ball got over Stutzer's head, bounced for a ground rule double, and he responded well to that. That was one thing, especially in the fall, you look for. Is the kid going to crumble, or is he going to be able to buckle down and find a way out of the inning and limit damage? And he did. And then he came out, I think, in that second inning. He got 2 total innings, right, Brett, in Pensacola? Was it the first inning he gave up runs, or was it the second?
No, he gave up the 2 runs in the second inning. The first 3 batters of the inning reached base. I think it was a hit by pitch, and then I want to say an actual double, and then the ground rule double on the misplayed fly ball. He retired 3 straight after that, after I think a mound visit from Micah.
Yeah, and he had a good first inning. That's what I'm remembering, where he came out and did a really nice job. So I like what I see from him. The key there is to stay healthy, but I think we're pretty safe in saying, without compromising anything, because it's pretty common knowledge at this point, Mendez and Beard are 2 guys in the rotation that I think you can put above 75% lock to be in there. So there really is that one spot. Obviously, all the guys are going to compete, and things can change before February, but Mendez is obviously going to be high in the rotation. They brought Beard in to be a starter in your rotation, and now there's that third opportunity. And the thing that I want to point out is you do need a right-hander, right? Because you don't really want 3 lefties. You did it this past season. And I think you got some pretty good results, but for the most part, you would like to have a different arm slot and a different look for teams to have to face. I think Moore checks that box. And especially to me, Brett, his stuff was better than I anticipated it being, in terms of the fastball jumping on hitters. The location of the fastball was good, but I thought the breaking balls really looked like a serious out pitch for him.
Yeah, both the breaking balls are plus pitches that are going to get swings and misses from both right-handed and left-handed hitters pretty consistently, I think. Especially the curveball is a really good pitch against both. I think he got swings and misses already from both left-handed and right-handed hitters from Mississippi State with the curveball. And he mixed a changeup in as well. And I think he's mentioned it's a 5-pitch mix. So I'm guessing that means it's 2 different fastball profiles, probably a 4-seam and a 2-seam, maybe a 4-seam and a cutter. But I didn't really see a cutter in there throughout the outing against Mississippi State. So I think it's probably a 4-seam, 2-seam that gives him the 5-pitch mix. So it's a legit starter's mix if he can stay healthy, which that's, I think, the big thing at this point. Stay healthy and show consistency. So those are the 2 things that he wasn't able to do at Virginia.
No doubt about it. Let's talk some Trey Beard. What did you think of his couple outings? The fastball's solid, and it took a jump forward, by the way, from in Pensacola to Hauser on Saturday when he played UAB. He was much more in the 92, 93 range. And in Pensacola, I think, Brett, he was in the 89, 92 range.
Yeah,
But the changeup's a real big deal, man. That's an MLB changeup. For me, he's going to need to find a third pitch that he's comfortable with. Been told they're working on a slider or a cutter type combination to figure out some way to be able to allow himself to mix a few more looks and a couple different pitches for some opposing batters to go with. But the fastball is good. It has, pretty good IVB induced vertical break, and it really does jump, but it pairs really well. Not just with the arm slot, which is right over the top, but that changeup's a big deal, and he throws it for strikes. It reminds me of big leaguer right now, Brett, buddy of mine and family that we know well, the Holton, Tyler Holton, who's with Detroit at the moment and has carved out a pretty good MLB career out of the pen with a changeup that he doesn't just throw to get swing and miss, but that he can throw and locate on either side of the plate for a first pitch or second pitch strike. That's my takeaways from him. He's a competitor, a guy who I think has embraced the expectations and has been at multiple levels with Team USA and in the Cape and dominating in the American. I really do like what he brings to the table, especially if he can find a third pitch that can offset the other two and allow him to really mix and match.
Yeah, I didn't think Beard was his sharpest in either outing, but I don't think he gave up a run between the two innings that he pitched. So that kind of tells you just the experience and the ability to pitch that he has. I think the fastball between the two outings was 90, 93. Like you said, it took a tick up back at home against UAB. The first changeup he threw at Mississippi State buckled my knees behind the plate. It's just, like you said, it plays really, really well off the fastball, but it's just a really good changeup that just stops midway to the plate. And it's hard to pick up, I think, despite the big difference in velocity. I mean, it's 13 to 15 miles per hour slower from the fastball. So there's a large difference there. But despite that, he's still able to get a lot of swings and misses and make guys look uncomfortable with it. And you know that it's coming too. I think that's the biggest thing is that pitch is coming, but hitters still have it. They still struggle with it. And you see that with guys like Skubal for the Tigers in the majors. Like, even though it's coming, it's still really hard to hit that left-handed changeup. But there does need to be a better breaking ball in play. I don't think he threw the slider at all against UAB, unless I missed it. But I don't think he threw any sliders against UAB. I think it was all curveballs. But he was throwing the slider against Mississippi State and Pensacola, and it was a decent pitch and a pitch that I think he can use to land for strikes early and then go to the fastball changeup. But yeah, the curveball is, it's 70, 72. It's kind of a moon ball. It's something that can be hard to land at times. I just think if you could get some more spin in there, a better ability to spin the baseball and land it more consistently, it'll go a really long way for Trey. But, we know that he knows how to pitch and he's going to fill up the strike zone with the fastball and the changeup.
He fits the mold, right? The Link has went and got at multiple stops now, whether it be at Notre Dame or at Florida State. There's a veteran that he brings in that knows how to pitch. And I do think Beard's stuff is good, for this level in the ACC, but he fits a mold, right? To come in on the weekend and be able to work deep into ball games and really give you a high floor, so to speak. And if he clicks, in the ACC, there's a shot that I think he has a chance to be drafted pretty highly, just based on the metrics of some of those pitches that he already possesses. So really excited about him.
Biggest thing with Trey is just the angle he creates way over the top. Makes it super uncomfortable. When the fastball gets down in the zone, it really creates a downhill angle that makes it tough for hitters to barrel it up, I think. It plays up in the zone as well. When it's up in the zone, it really tunnels well with the changeup. So, and not just having 1 year of starting, but 2 full years of starting. Obviously, one was way better than the other, but 2 full years of starting in the college game, that just goes a really long way.
I don't think anybody gets, almost 120 strikeouts by accident. So to me, that is a box you can check and something to expect, a guy to come in and be able to have pretty good swing and miss stuff. And, For me with Beard, it'll be about fastball command. If he can consistently put the ball where he wants it with the fastball, it doesn't matter if it's in the ACC or against the SEC or in Omaha. It's going to play if he's able to spot and get ahead, because then he can set himself up with the changeup and a third offering. But that fastball, he's the kind of guy that can't get behind in counts, right? And that's very similar to Vellini, who did become pretty awesome at getting strike one at Florida State towards the end, especially of his season last year. So that's things that I was jotting down. Pretty cool opportunity for me and Chris Chavez to call that fall scrimmage against UAB. That doesn't happen often. And if you look around the country, not many of those games are televised. And shout out to Randy Burdett and Link Jarrett, because they wanted the players to be a part of the broadcast too. And we had some pretty cool moments there with a couple of different players. And Trey Beard was really funny, actually, to be on that broadcast. We had that weird ump delay where the umpires had no idea really what had happened and how to administer the rule. But kind of going through that together was pretty hysterical with Trey on the broadcast. But he's someone that I think the maturity level stands out to me, a guy who's here with a mission. He's not just here to enjoy college and play at Florida State. I think he knows what he wants, and he's here to fit the role, help Florida State get to Omaha, and then have a chance at the next level. So like what I saw there, let's put together guys like Stokes, O'Leary, and Abraham, those three. Let's pair them together. Obviously, one, everybody knows pretty well in John Abraham. And Stokes and O'Leary are high-octane guys that they brought in from Oregon and Mississippi State to be able to fit power right-handed profiles out of the pen. What did you make of the limited action you saw from those guys, and how do they fit into what Florida State wants to do for Micah Posey and his pitching staff?
Yeah, obviously all three are power right-handed arms, and they're all a little bit different. I think first on Stokes, only saw the one inning that he threw against Mississippi State, and there were some command issues there. I think he walked 3 and allowed 1 run, and that one inning of work. But it's electric stuff, and it's a low slot from a really big frame. I believe he's listed at 6'6", or maybe it's 6'4". Eccles is 6'4", and I think that Stokes is 6'6", but it's a really low release height for that frame. And he's throwing, 94, 96, touching 7. We've heard he's been up to 99 before, and we expect that it will probably be in that upper 90s range in the season, I think, if he's not extending out, which I do believe it's a reliever profile. There are some similarities there to Gavin Adams. I think like Gavin, it's a really, really good slider. Maybe not as good of a changeup as Gavin, but we also didn't see too much of the changeup. But I think, the slider was the pitch that he was going to, and he needed to get out of the jam. And when he needed to land a strike, like that was the pitch for him that was on a string. And off the fastball, the slider, I can't remember exactly what the velo was. I think it was around 86, 88. It kept getting swings and misses over and over again. That was the out pitch for him. It's going to be a pitch that works out really well for him over a long span and getting a lot of swings and misses. And you see that in the strikeout numbers from last year. But we also know that command issues are there, both not just from this outing, but also from the hit by pitch numbers that you see last year. Johnny Abraham, I saw him in an inter-squad scrimmage before the UAB outing. In this first inning, he gave up a good bit of hard contact, but then was able to settle in and have a better second inning. I think that outing against UAB was really what you want to see from John. It was 2 pretty dominant innings. I think he only allowed 1 base runner and struck out 3. The fastball is where you expect for John, mostly 92, 93, touching some 94. I think the slider is new for John. I think he's calling it a sweeper, but it's still in the mid 80s. And then you pair that with the knuckle curve that he's always thrown in the low 80s. It's just a tough. When he's getting it in the zone and being consistent, John's really tough to pick up. But you just have to always be working on the consistency with John, and that's the thing that we've been looking for the last 2 years. We know the stuff is there. I really liked what I saw from Cade O'Leary. He's a Mississippi State transfer, 5-pitch guy, which I wasn't really expecting. I mostly expected O'Leary to be more like fastball slider. I think that's what I had been told that he was doing last year at Mississippi State. Trying trying to pull up video of him real quick before we start talking about him. But yeah, O'Leary's running the fastball up to 95, mostly 93, 94. It's good fastball shape. He's another guy that's over the top, and you're going to get some riding life. The slider is more so, I think, kind of a gyro slider. It's not going to get a ton of horizontal break, but mostly north and south. But he uses a cutter that it's going to give him more of that horizontal break. And the cutter worked really well for him in both outings. He got some swings and misses on it at like 89, 88, 89. So it plays well off the fastball at the top of the zone. Also mixes in the curveball and the changeup. So, I mean, it's a legit mix for O'Leary with some stuff to go with it. He's someone that I could definitely see being extended out of the bullpen or in an extended role. I think him and John are both guys that could be extended out and also potentially compete for the starter mix. I think if Stokes was able to find the command, you could potentially add him into that group as well. But just with the command issues right now, I think Stokes plays more as a reliever. But I think all three of those power right-handed arms, when the stuff is in the zone, it really excites you.
And that's an area too, right, Brett, that Florida State needed replenishments and needs more options is in the pen, where really the last 2 years, lack of depth has hurt them, especially towards the end of the year in the pen. So if you can get 4 or 5 or 6 guys that you trust in some capacity out of the pen, it really does relieve you throughout the course of a 60-game schedule. And especially you saw it against Oregon State. You had to go to the same guys. That's who had built the trust, but there was only really a handful of them, and more closer to 1 or 2 than there were closer to 4 or 5 guys that you trusted. So I think they knew that going in to this one, and into this season, I should say. And, Stokes and O'Leary are 2 guys that I do believe can help them with power profiles from that right-handed side. Like you said, they're both a little bit different, but I think Stokes can touch triple digits by the, end of the year there for Florida State, and O'Leary might get pretty close too, because it's a power arm that's relatively young. So those are 2 guys, in my opinion, that I think Florida State's going to rely on in the fall. Or excuse me, in the spring, I should say.
For sure. I definitely think those guys will be heavily involved, and you need power right-handed arms, a lot of them. You got to have them at this point, and you saw a lot of them from Mississippi State. I mean, almost every single arm that Mississippi State ran out of the bullpen was 94 plus. In a 14-inning scrimmage where they're throwing, I think, 10 guys they threw. Basically, every single guy they threw was 94 plus, whether it was right-handed or left-handed. So, I mean, it just tells you the type of stuff and talent you have to have on the mound to be able to compete at the highest level right now.
Yeah, against some really good bats, like you said. And I think Mississippi State didn't have Aiden Teal and remind me of the other guy's name that's like one of the best hitters in the ACC, Ace.
Yeah, Ace Reese. Yeah,
Ace Reese. There it is. So they didn't have Reese or Teal, who are is it Kyle Teal? Is that his brother?
Aiden Teal. Kyle's in the majors.
In the majors, yeah. The Virginia connection there. There's so many brothers that played for Brian O'Connor, and they were all really good. he knew how to find the family pipeline, right? So the Geloffs and so to speak of the world, but that's a really good Mississippi State team, y'all. That's a lot of talent. Like their baseline should be Omaha. Like that, yeah. You're going to be hard pressed to find more talent in the SEC than what they have this year. Really impressive. So I actually love the way Florida State played, all things considered, in those 14 innings combined. What stood out to you? Let's talk one more arm, and then I'm going to ask you about the bats. Because you made a note of one that I agree with, but Manny Lantigua, the freshman, has come out there in the low 90s with the fastball and a really big breaking ball that looks to be a put-away pitch that he has a lot of feel for. That was a name I had no idea what to expect from before fall ball, but I think he's going to make a push to give you some quality innings there in 2026.
Yeah, I've really liked what I've seen from Lantigua so far, and mostly because it's a really young arm. Like, when Manny committed to FSU, he was a position player commit more so. I think he was doing both still at the time a bit, but really wasn't. I think it was more so as a position player than an arm. And then, last year late in the cycle, they let me know that they were going to bring him in as an arm first. and maybe try to figure out the bat. But, at this point, he's just a pitcher only, I believe. And, it's exciting to see what he's doing this early on in these environments. In that Mississippi State game, he closed out the second game, and I think they were only up one at the time. They ended up scoring a couple of runs in the bottom half of the inning, and he had to strand the bases loaded to win it and end that game. And he came through with the strikeouts. He ended the game, and then against UAB as well, he pitched the last inning of the first game. They were up by 6 at that point, but he worked a 1-2-3 inning. So, like you said, the fastball's only in the low 90s right now, mostly 90, 93. But I just think with the how young he is on the mound, there's probably some stuff to be cleaned up there mechanically, I would guess. And there should be more in there velo wise, but the ability to command the slider over and over again, and it's a good slider this early on. I mean, he has feel for it. He's throwing it for strikes over and over again. He's getting swing and miss on it as well. And he's just filling up the strike zone in general, both with the fastball and the slider. So I think there's a lot for him to learn on the mound, but the fact that he's showing the ability to compete and just have the feel for the strike zone with the breaking ball right now, that's good to see. And I think he's someone that could potentially contribute for you this year, but especially down the road, if this is already what we're seeing from him at this point.
Yeah, and there's another jump that needs to be made from fall to spring. And for freshmen, sometimes that's not the easiest jump to make because there's a learning curve. But there's always one freshman is in there every year that ends up contributing somewhat on the mound that you didn't expect to be doing so. And could Lantigua be that guy? He showed enough to, I think, raise some eyebrows to be a guy for us to monitor, in January and in early February before the season starts. Brett, no Mendez in either of the scrimmages. That was by design. I think they know what they have in Wes, but he's been really good this fall, putting it point blank. I know you were excited to watch him pitch when you went to the inner squad, and I had been texting you about a couple weeks earlier and letting you know that fastball felt a lot more firm, and there was more 4s to 6s than I had remembered from last year. And his breaking ball still looks sharp. The slider is really good and coming along, and the changeup still has a ton of movement. I do think that's going to be the key for him is can he get that changeup to work the way that he wants it to work, to really truly have a 4 or 5 pitch mix, because he does have a ton of talent and the fastball has taken a leap forward. And for him, he told us on the broadcast against UAB, he hopped on and he said having that summer off was a really big deal for him and his body and a chance to mentally reset. He hadn't had a vacation in a couple of years with his family because it's baseball all the way through the calendar, right? You've got summer ball and you've got travel ball in high school in the summers, and you just never have a chance to take a break. And I think his body responded well to that too.
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest reason I drove up the Thursday before the game in Pensacola, was just to go and see Wes, because I knew he wasn't going to be able to throw in either the exhibitions. So I got to see Wes throw a couple innings, and like you said, this stuff was just really, really exciting. I mean, 94, 96 for the most part, some 93s in there as well, but I mean, mostly 94, 95, and then touched a 96 in his second inning. And that was what I was really impressed with. It seemed like this stuff was climbing in the second, and it just seemed like Wes was in really good shape from where he came out of his summer training. And I believe that, I don't want to mess it up, but I believe Wes works at the Armory in Tampa. And he works really hard in the summer, and it looked like they were putting out videos of him throughout the summer, and it seemed like Wes was working specifically really hard on the off-speed stuff, because that was the stuff that, when he wasn't having success, it felt like the off-speed stuff was just really inconsistent, and he didn't have all of his pitches to go into an outing with. But when Wes does have everything going, we know what he can do. Like we saw it against Mississippi State. So I think he just worked really hard on refining the secondary pitches, and you could see it. The slider is a little sharper and better. The changeup is much higher in velocity, which it needed to be to kind of create more deception and not be so distance out with the fastball. I still think there's some things there with the changeup where he pronates it so hard and so well that you can kind of see it a little bit, but you have to be at the highest level as a hitter in college, I think, to be able to pick up on it. But I still think that is something there once in a while. But the curveball looked good too. I mean, it looks really good. It's just putting it all together consistently over a full season. If Wes can do that, he's going to be one of the best pitchers in the country. He just has to take that step of consistency and sharpness with all the pitches week in and week out. And he talked with you guys on the broadcast about just the consistency of being a starter and getting in the routine and being able to go on the road and keep that routine. So I think the second year of starting for Wes and the summer off will just be really big for him. He looked really good when I saw him. I was really impressed.
I was too. And, for me, Wes, if you were putting a guy together in a lab, right, he checks every box, and it's the perfect pitcher. Athleticism, lefty, electric fastball, has a combo of 4 to 5 pitches he can get to. It's just for him, like you said, can he put it all together in one season? Because we saw it in flashes last year against some elite lineups, and he made them look silly in some big moments. And so can he step up for you and be that Friday night guy? I think the answer is yes. Now he's just got to go and show it. Also, apologies if you guys can hear the lawnmower. They're edging all the different trees and leaves right now. It's never a good time, it feels like, when the mowers show up. But
I haven't picked up on any of it to this point.
That's good. That's good. I can hear it loud and proud by those guys right now. So, yeah, man, I think pitching pretty good synopsis there. There'll be more for us to break down. I think there'll be there's a Garnet and Gold game this weekend. Some of these guys will pitch on Friday, and then we'll have a better idea, in January and in early February. But I like the makings of this staff. I thought Manka looked okay. Much better in Pensacola than he did against UAB. Purcell, I'm still high on what he will be, but he hasn't looked great in either of the two opportunities he's gotten in the fall. But that's a name that they're really counting on. That was a big add in a Big Ten, all Big Ten second team member that has pitched at a high level at USC, and they love his slot. And I went to a bullpen session, a couple days before the UAB game, and they're working on a lot of stuff with him to try and get him to be the best version of himself. And there's some stuff there with the slider paired off the fastball that they can work on and try and really mess with hitters. So still high on what he's going to add to this team in the pen, but it just didn't stand out. I think he lost command a couple of times there in those contests that he got. So, he was okay. I thought Manka was okay. They're really going to count on Manka as the only lefty really in that pen, right? That as of now that they, you can 100% count on. We'll see how they use him. Is it a midweek arm? Is it a long relief arm? Is it both? Can they find another option there that's a lefty as well to step up before the season starts? We'll see. But I actually thought Manka's stuff, and tell me if I'm wrong, Brett, I thought the stuff looked a little bit firmer and a little bit better, more spin rate, bigger breaking ball, and the fastball seemed like it was a bit firmer, just from my naked eye calling the game on last weekend.
Yeah, I'm really confident in what Peyton's going to be able to give them this upcoming year, despite giving up a couple of runs to UAB. I think he had retired the first, all three batters he faced against Mississippi State in 8 pitches. And then he retired the first, I want to say, 3 batters he faced against UAB. And then it was like he gave up 3 straight hits, 2 of those doubles, gave him up a couple of runs. So, it is what it is. But like you said, the stuff is up. To me, the biggest thing watching Peyton over the summer, I got to see, I think, 3 or 4 starts of his in the Cape, and then seeing him this fall is like, he just looks really confident and in command and in control of what he's doing, and he's pitching with conviction, and he knows what he wants to do. Like, he knows his stuff. It's 2 good breaking balls. I think the breaking balls were the big thing for them this offseason that they wanted Peyton to improve on, and they've said he's done that, and it looks like that as well when you go and watch it. And I think the fastball got up to 93 against UAB. He only threw 1 against Mississippi State, and the 8 pitches he threw, that one was 90. But I think, they expect him to be more like 90, 93 this year versus, I think we saw mostly 89, 91, some 92s last year, his first year off Tommy John. So, this is going to be his second full season coming off Tommy John. And that's usually when you see guys kind of take that big jump just in production. And based off the numbers that Manka put up last year, I do think you could see that jump from him. And they're going to need it because they don't have too many left-handed arms. It's mostly just him and Kevin Meeble and Cooper Whited behind the two guys that you expect to be in the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I do think you would look to, right? And he had some big moments last year and some important innings. Not a ton of lefty options again in the pen. So you're going to rely on him, I think, to eat up a ton of innings. It wouldn't surprise me if you looked, at the end of the year and he has like starting pitching innings in terms of out of the pen, a guy who's come in for 3 innings or 4 innings out of the pen and really shut things down. You might be able to go 5 innings with one guy and then Manka comes in and shuts it down for 4 innings paired off of him. That could be an option too. So a lot to still, I think, evaluate with this pitching staff. It's a lot of new names. They only returned something like under 40% of their starting innings from a year ago. So we'll see. But they did go and get guys that had done it before at some pretty big name teams. So I think that's something we can expect. At the plate, what stood out to you? Let's start with the returners. Obviously, Miles hit the home run against UAB, which was pretty special to watch. And he's looked really good. The back half of fall, he has looked a lot better than the first half of the fall. And he's worked on some things to stay on his back leg and be able to go middle away. And the home run was a nice reward, in my opinion. And then there's another video of you that you put out of a home run that he hit over the screen in a scrimmage in an inter squad. And it's laughable power, man. It's crazy. And if he can become a complete hitter for this team and take that step forward, I just think the sky's the limit for this offense, because I do think he's going to make this thing go about as far as he can with the talent that he possesses.
Yeah, I think Miles looks to be in a really good place to me, and obviously he ended the season in that same spot as well. But didn't put up many numbers in the summer when he got to go out and play a little bit in the Cape and with Team USA at training camp. But and it heard he got off to a little bit of a slow start at the beginning of fall, but I mean, the first swing I saw in fall went 450 plus feet, I think. So, that's a good sign. Looks good to me. I put together some pretty good at bats against Mississippi State. I think he got on base once or twice against them. I know he had a single late in the game, which was one of their only hits in that first game. But yeah, and then the home run against UAB, it's just as immediately as he made contact, I just started laughing because, I mean, when a ball has gone opposite field immediately and it's gone that far and almost clears the scoreboard, it's just, I mean, it's laughable power. He should not legally have a metal bat in his hand. It is dangerous what he can do with a metal bat in his hand just from the power that he has. I mean, he's just like, it's easy. I mean, there's not much movement there. There's no wasted movement. There's not a big load. It's just all strength, and 90% of that strength comes from the lower half. I mean, you just have to look at the tree trunks that Miles stands on. Like, that's where all of his power comes from, and it's going to be consistently there. And like I've said before, I think I said on the last pod or sometime recently, like, I expect Miles to hit 30 home runs. If he's pitched to consistently in the zone and the right field fence still exists, like, I mean, he's got a pretty good chance to do that this year.
I'm just watching your video on loop, and it's admirable, man. To think he's not even 20 years old yet is incredible. And I think that's what makes him such a good draft prospect, is guys know what he's going to be, I think, in 5 years from now, if he continues to be on the trajectory that he is. Something you said also stood out to me, and that's the quality of at bat that he's had in the fall in those scrimmages, spitting on 3-2 counts and balls in the dirt. Guys are going to try and make him chase. I think most pitchers are going to be afraid to attack him. Truly, maybe some of the elite guys will be able to go after him, but his ability not to extend his own zone will be a key for him. To get into leverage counts where he can do damage will be a key for him. And I think we saw more consistency in that area the back half of last year in his freshman campaign. When I was talking to his dad, Kevin Bailey, who's a great guy, and just some of the things that they're working on with him is if he can stay back and, again, go middle away, it's going to be a hard exit velocity every single time for him because of just the sheer strength, like you said. So can he continue to put it all together? He's playing a better first base. He's improving defensively. I think you're starting to see it come together, and I'm a little confused as to why there isn't more preseason draft buzz for Miles. I'm not sure why he's not as mentioned in the first round as many of these other guys, because I do think the draft has shown when you have that kind of power grade that you're going to get drafted pretty highly. And I would say his hit tool is above most guys who have that power grade that he has, because there's very few guys that you will see that have 70 or 80 power grade and also have, in my opinion, somewhere between a 45 and 55 hit tool. I think he can do that. I really believe that he can do that. And so I am surprised. Maybe defensively they want to see more. Maybe they want to see less swing and miss, and maybe, in zone contact percentage. But I think that's going to go up this year too. So I'm excited about that, Brett. Maybe you can enlighten on more of why Miles hasn't been getting some of the love that a guy like Hunter Carnes is getting. And I think Hunter deserves it because of the overall athleticism package and what he will become. But I think Miles is right there too.
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of the position, which doesn't get as valued as much as it used to. And I don't fully get why it doesn't, especially in draft rankings after some of the recent years, but that is a thing. And obviously catcher is a much more primary position, or premium position, I should say. But I think probably just the strikeout rate from last year and the combination of being a first baseman that's only played first base to this point in college. We know that Miles can go play outfield and has done it in the past in high school. And also just the fact he's only been in college 1 year. There's not as much counting numbers and production per se versus most of the guys that you're going up against in the draft. And the draft rankings have been in college for 2 years at this point and produced for 2 years. If he goes out and hits 30 homers this year and
First
hits
round pick, man.
330 plus, and the strikeout percentage is around 24% or lower, like that should be a first rounder. And they don't draft off college numbers, but at the end of the day, like with his power, and if he can lower the strikeout rate a little bit, play a good first base, maybe go play some outfield this year and show some of his athleticism for his size, and just continue to elevate himself power production wise. Like until the second half of last season, Miles never produced power the way that he was capable of. And I think so much of that was that Miles is very disciplined and really patient at the plate. But now you're starting to combine that discipline and patience with aggression on the pitches that he should be swinging at, on the 2-0 fastballs in the zone, on the 1-0 fastball, on the first pitch fastball, or on breaking balls that he knows are going to come to him because everybody tries to throw him off-speed pitches. Like, so he's just getting better at the selection process, the pitch selection process of the plate, which has allowed him to fully unlock the power production he's capable of. And if he continues to do that, he'll continue to climb the rankings the way he should.
Yeah, I made a note in that UAB game as I'm scorekeeping while calling the game. I also like to write little notes down, and a lot of it's just so that I don't forget when we do Sunday Golds what I thought in the moment. And me and Chris Chavez are thinking and talking about in the broadcast and in between innings. Between Chase Williams, who I think can be an energy spark plug in a different way, Miles is that energy spark plug that changes the momentum of a game just with the way that he hits the baseball. And I think you've got a couple of those guys this year that can legitimately inject energy and change the momentum of an entire game in the middle innings, right? A Miles Bailey home run changes the complexion of how that game goes, especially at Hauser, Brett, when the fans get into it behind watching the ball fly out of the park. And then when Chase Williams, the way he plays the game, Link has always talked about, remember when he first got here, and he had always talked about you can change the momentum and the energy, but it starts out there, and he would point out to the field, and then you bring it back here into the dugout. And you've got guys who I think with the way they play can really set the tone of ball games for you this year. And I think that might be a little different than what you've had in the past where, you've had some lineups that can really hit the ball out of the park. and you've had some depth in some of the lineups. But this one to me has a chance to be a little bit different and really capitalize on momentum that permeates through an entire order.
Yeah, I think guys like probably John Stetzer, the freshman, and Gabe Frazier, the shortstop transfer from Arkansas, probably fit that kind of mold of electricity as well. And I think Chase on the broadcast mentioned to you guys that he just felt like this group is much more athletic than last year. And I think we thought last year's group was athletic. But Chase said like he expects them to steal a lot more bases this year. And they still haven't done that to the rate that we've expected them to, I guess I would say, that we expected when Link was hired. Like I thought we'd see them run all the time, but they've been pretty careful about it the last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, Miles could hit a ball 500 feet, and then Chase could steal first base, second base, third base, and home. Like he can steal first with a bunt, and he can straight steal home. But you have Stetzer is someone that is probably runs sub 6'5". I would think Frazier is probably the same. And then you just have some different personalities too. Like Cal is now in his third year here. Brody DeLongmelier is now in his third year here. That both those guys I think are a little bit more kind of laid back and relaxed and have fun with it. And then you have an older guy now with someone like Eli Putnam, who's played 4 years of college baseball that you add to this group and can be kind of the veteran for those guys. And you still have Nate Shmelia as well, who's working his way back from injury still, but he's another guy that's in his 5th year of college baseball. So you have some different personalities that should blend well together, I think.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point about what some of these guys will be able to complement each other with. I was laughing at Chase's interview throughout while trying to conduct it professionally. He's screaming at his teammates. He's cheering on when Brody DeLongmelier throws the kid out at second. He's yelling at Sheffield, counting the time he has before he hits the wall. Then he makes a comment that he would be 7 rows deep, trying to bring it back if he was out there.
Right after he said
he's
that
doing play-by-play. Yeah, he's trying to do some play-by-play.
Stay healthy.
He knows only one way, man. There's only one way that kid plays the game. Chase mentioning he wants to be on television. I could totally see it. Honestly, if there's a reality television show, I would pick Chase Williams probably to go be on that Netflix. Or you would call it Love Island if you want, or whatever they got out there.
I don't know. I think I'd pick Noah Sheffield still.
You go Noah. One of those guys is going out there to be a TV star. But Chase has that personality too. So he's funny. I'm trying to get him back on these broadcasts when the season starts. I've got to convince Link and Randy to allow it. But maybe we can mic him up before. Yeah, maybe before the game starts. And that way we have everything we need in the can. But yeah, man, I think Putnam's another one who comes out there and he's clearly played baseball a very long time. He's got a plus bat, I think, especially for the college game. Hit a home run into the wind in Pensacola and shows you the ability to really swing the stick. He's going to have to be in the lineup, I think, every day. It's a real bat that should hit above 300 and go double digits in home runs. Where they put him in the field, they're still trying to figure that out. Could it be at second? Could it be at third? Could it be as DH? They've got to figure that combination out to get Putnam in the lineup. But there was a profile they liked, right, about him. There was a reason they had wanted him as far back as a year and a half ago when they knew about him. And there's a reason that he's here in Tallahassee. And I think that's to swing the stick. And so far, what I've seen in the fall doesn't change my mind about the fact that I think he's going to be a middle of the order bat for you.
Yeah, you picked up Putnam for the bat, and you'd figure out the defense later. And you'd hope that Link can work his magic on the infield, whether that be at second base or third base. I got to see him somewhat at second base in the inter squad that I saw. I think he turned a double play in that inter squad, but he hasn't played second, I don't think, between the two exhibitions. I think he played third in both and then DH'd in the second game against UAB. But yeah, I believe that's the first home run we've seen in the last 2 years of being at Pensacola between the teams that have been there. I don't think Auburn or FSU hit one last year, and that was the only one this year. It's just a really tough place to hit it out when the wind's blowing the way it was that day coming off the water, and it felt like nobody was going to be able to do it. There were some balls that were hit pretty well to center that ended up just being routine fly balls, but I think he was facing a guy throwing low 90s cutters and was able to get one of them and send it down over the left field wall. And I think he had another hit in the game, and then also had 2 hits in the first game against UAB, as well as another one in the second one. So a lot of production from him. And then, yeah, you just figure out the defense. But I think you know what you're getting with the bat, and that's production. And it's going to be power production and also some bat to ball. But I think the big thing that you wanted to get from him was power production. And to see that come to fruition in Pensacola in that setting against that type of arm, and with the wind blowing in the way it was, it kind of proved to you just how powerful he could be at this level, which is good to see.
Another guy they brought in, Brett, Braden Dowd, looks really good. They brought him in from USC. It was a late ad. I think once Harrelson decided to go pro, you needed a guy to lead off for you, and I think you found something pretty special in Dowd, especially as far as college hitters go. It's a pro at bat, man. Like he watches pitches. He's a really good leadoff hitter, and there's enough pop there to scare you at the top of the order. But he'll spray it gap to gap. He'll settle for the base hit. He'll settle for the walk. He runs decently well as on the base paths. And he really sets the tone well. He was awesome against UAB. There were so many quality at bats against the Blazers. I'm extremely excited about what this guy's going to do for you. I think he's your leadoff guy. I think he's kind of established that, and I'm really excited about him, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've thought that Dowd would be their leadoff hitter from the moment that he committed to FSU. That's what he did at USC last year. I think the year before that he hit second for them as a true freshman, I want to say. But he's a really, really polished bat, and there's nothing that really jumps off the page tools wise. And like, if you go watch BP, like, he's not one of the guys that's probably going to super stand out to you just between the size and the power, but it's just good at bat after good at bat. And you did get to see some impact against UAB. I mean, all 4 of his at bats, I think 2 of them resulted in hits, but all 4 at bats were 100 plus exit velocities. I think the last one was 108. He's someone that's going to pick and choose his spots with the power, I think, especially with the right field fence at Hauser. Like, it's not going to be tons of consistent power, but like 2-0 fastball, nobody on base, 2 outs, he's going to take his chance, and he's going to get it once in a while. And you saw that the other day. Didn't hit a homer, but drove a couple of balls to deep center. So there is some juice in there, but just the ability, the pitch selection, the ability that he puts together, the quality of contact consistently. Like, there's not a ton of weak contact from him. Runs the bases well, plays the outfield well. I don't know if I would pencil him into center field just with Chase coming back in the spring, but he's someone that you could trust to go and play all 3 spots in the outfield, I think, which is something that they want, obviously. But yeah, he put together a really impressive day against UAB.
Well, you want it at leadoff as a guy who looks composed and he's in control and command of the AB. That's, to me, step one, right? And you saw it under 11. They'd have leadoff guys, and even under Meat, right, with Tyler, like the guys who come up there and they're leading off, you want to see a composure of a plan at the plate. You're not going out there to always do damage. Sometimes you're trying to give your teammates behind you a chance to see a few pitches from this guy on the mound early. Other times it's, I have the ability to ambush something if a guy makes a mistake. Other times it's, I need to be situationally aware of what's going on and move guys, to second and third. Other times it's, I got to deliver and bring a guy in from third base. Other times it's, I need to, drive in RBIs into the gaps. And Dowd does a lot of that. And I really think that that's going to be something that ultimately, when we talk about momentum for this lineup, he's going to be someone that helps kind of set the tone for this lineup 1 through 9. So that's kind of when I was jotting down notes, those were things that stood out to me. It was the ability to go out there and not be too antsy, yet not be too patient. And there was a nice mix in there. And Taylor Walls back in the day was really good at that for Florida State. He's carved out a career in the MLB based on the glove and the defense, but at FSU, he hit 350 as a switch hitter with double-digit homers, and it was the command that he had at the plate at leadoff with just enough juice. And I'm not saying Dowd's Taylor Walls, but they remind me somewhat of each other in terms of the way they're approaching the AB. So,
I mean, his walk rate might be higher than his K rate. Like and I'm
that's what
pretty
you
sure
want.
that's pretty similar to what T-Dub was like.
Yeah. So, um, looking at some more notes here, let's talk about a couple of the freshmen. And quite frankly, I think I'm going to include Noah Sheffield in this because, for all intents and purposes, he's going to get his first real look probably of getting meaningful time at Florida State. But between Chef, Kelvin Paulino Jr., and John Stutzer, I think you have found some real talent there, man. Sheffield's taken a clear step forward. The bat is really good. He impressed me in left field, actually, with a couple of different cutoffs and getting to baseballs and some awareness out there. And whereas the bat for Chef, he obviously knows what he's doing. Like, there is a pedigree there with his family and a guy who knows what to be doing at the plate. And he has had a nice fall. But then with a guy like Stutzer, it's immense athleticism. He flies like the wind. Former football player for a really good football program in the Atlanta area in Pope High School. I think he had something like over 3,000 career yards in the couple seasons that he played as a receiver and a running back for Pope. And you can see that he's got a lot of power. He's hit a couple home runs opposite field in scrimmages that I've been at. And Brett, I know in the second game against UAB that wasn't televised, but he looked really good. I mean, it was a couple of base hits, extra base hits. He took extra bases when they were giving it to him. And he looked athletic as all can be. And then I have been high on Kelvin Paulino Jr. since the first time you sent me a video of him about a year ago. And you said that this kid's bat is real. And I think Paulino has to find a way in that order every day. It's a real bat. It's polished. He reminds me of, not exact profile, but when Tibbs and Jaime Ferrer both got here as freshmen and you saw the polish that they have at the plate and their ability for that hit tool to, I think, immediately translate among getting into the lineup. Paulino reminds me of that advanced approach, won't be overwhelmed by college pitching, and he has hit almost everything on the screws this fall, especially in the scrimmages. Had a chance to meet his family in Pensacola. Great people, and are really excited to be at Florida State. It was really close for him to sign a big league contract, to get a signing bonus. There were a couple teams that made late runs at him, and he decided he wanted to be a Seminole and experience college and give it another shot in a couple years. But it seemed like late in the process, people really wanted Paulino. Major League scouts really took notice. And when you watch him play, Brett, I don't want to, on October 30th, be wrong, because there's so much time between now and February and next March or April when we have to revisit these. I think you got one. I think you got a star in Kelvin Paulino Jr., and I think you're going to see that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'll start with Paulino since you ended there. I mean, I'm good friends with someone that watches the travel ball scene quite closely, and had been telling me for a while that if Paulino got on campus, that he would start from day one, probably at DH, because I think the reason that he was not signed by an MLB team was the defense was a question. Would he be able to stick on the infield? Would he be able to go and play third base at a professional level? And right now at FSU, they're working him in the outfield some, working him in infield some, trying to figure out the defense still. But the bat is it's really real. I mean, I think he had multiple hits in both games that he's played, in both these exhibitions that he's played. There's a lot going on pre-pitch with him, but to me, it's just all rhythm. Like, he gets to a really good spot by the time that he's at his load, and it's just really clean. And the hit tool is present right now. Like, it's an above average hit tool. And it's a hit tool with impact. There's some power in there. We haven't seen him lift the ball too much yet. It's a lot of line drives, which I think you want to see from a young kid like that. But he's just someone that I think you just expect to rake. And you got to figure out the defense at some point. Like Link says, they don't coach DHs, but ultimately you do have a DH in the lineup, and you'll have someone in there at some point. I think Paulino, Putnam, Sheffield, those are all guys that could potentially DH for you. Charlie Buckles as well, another freshman. But it's been really exciting to see Paulino do this early on, kind of live up to the expectations that a lot of people had for him. Chef, he's obviously new to the outfield. Like you said, I think he's looked really comfortable out there. I've seen him working at both corners, I believe, to this point, in both spots. He's looked comfortable. Haven't seen any mistakes from him. The bat, he was their best bat in the first game against Mississippi State. He had 2 hits in that game. I think he had their first hit of the game, which was in like the 4th inning. They were pretty quiet up until that point, and he kind of got them going a little bit. And every single hit he's had really has been hard contact. It hasn't been bloopers or stuff like that. He had a couple more hits, I think, in the UAB exhibition, or maybe it was only one, but it was double down the third base line that drove in a couple runs and was really hit well. So it's been good to see him do that. I really liked Chef's bat coming out of the fall last year, and then he kind of struggled throughout the preseason, and obviously didn't get many opportunities during the season with the group they had last year. But to me, he looks back in a spot where he could potentially go and be in the starting group for you if he continues to swing the bat like this for another, obviously we're still 4 months away from February and opening day, so there's still a long way to go, but it seems that he's really swung the bat well so far this fall. And then Stetzer is another guy that, all 3 of these guys are new to the outfield, and Stetzer is someone who played infield, I believe, mostly shortstop, and is making the transition to the outfield, but they always really expected him to go and play the outfield when he got here, just because the athletic profile is really special. He's a former football player at Pope, same high school as James Tibbs. I think they expect him to be a guy that could potentially crack the starting lineup this year, maybe not every day. Obviously, you have 3 guys in the outfield, and Brody Delamelier, Braden Dowd, and Chase Williams, that you expect to be, everyday type of guys. But Stetzer is going to be right there in that mix with those guys, both because of the bat and the athletic profile. I think there's going to be some swing and miss early on there, but when he does get the ball and play on the ground, he's got a chance to get on base because of his speed. And when he puts it in the air, it's got a chance to go over the fence because there's some real strength in his frame. So, it's an exciting trio of young guys right there.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good synopsis of what we've kind of observed in scrimmages so far, of guys who've at least stood out. Brett, maybe we'll do an episode in about 10 days to 2 weeks, and we can get Link on here just to recap fall, and then you and I can maybe deep dive into a lot of these guys moving into preseason and into the spring. There's some other guys I think I want to talk about, Carnes and Fish and Jace Estes and some of the different guys, McCulley, who've gotten opportunities and how they might fit in. But they do have one more opportunity, I think, with the Garnet and Gold game to show some things and give us a full sample set of what we can expect. So we'll do that, I think, on the next episode. What do you expect out of this inter squad scrimmage between the Garnet and the Gold? And I think there's a home run derby at the end, which was a highlight last year.
Yeah, I won't be there, but the game will be on Halloween Friday at 6:30. I think it's going to be a 7-inning inter squad followed by the home run derby. And I think they're doing a lot of giveaways as well. I think I saw T-shirts to the first 750 people or so, and then I think they're doing some stuff after the game as well, and costume contests for, I think, both kids and then also the students that show up. So I'm sure that will be interesting and fun. But yeah, I won't be there, so I won't have coverage of it. I'll do what I can from afar without any stream, but that was quite helpful last weekend to have the stream not being there. So I didn't get to see the last 7 against UAB either. But yeah, you'll be there. You'll get to fill us in on the happenings. One thing that I didn't have in the notes for us to talk about that we should talk about is Link's contract amendment.
Yeah, that seems like we shouldn't bury the lead. That's my bad. That might have been a headliner there. I'll let you jump into that. The only comment I probably can make with my role at Florida State is I'm really glad that Link is still a Seminole. And kudos to Michael Alford, A.D. Alford, for making sure that Link would be in Tallahassee, because teams made a run at him and they were indeed interested. And so that's all I'll say about it. Thankful for Link. Go Noles.
Yeah, so obviously Tony Vitello took the San Francisco Giants head coaching job, leaving Tennessee's job open. Ultimately, they did end up hiring Josh Elander, but I think early on in that process, Link was one of the names that was mentioned just from national outlets, and I think also from Tennessee outlets. Pretty shortly after that, FSU and Link announced a new amendment to his contract, which solidified his commitment to the program. I think the big things from that contract was I think the buyout got bigger. Obviously, his compensation went up. I think Baseball America said that he's now the 5th highest paid coach in the country. I believe that's what they said. Over the lifetime of the contract, which is 6 years, yearly average of $2.141 million. So I think, and then I think some of the staff salary contract is up a bit as well. So just biggest thing is that they locked Link in and kept him here and kept any interest from Tennessee into turning into anything other than interest. This is where Link wants to be and where Link wants to win a championship, and he wants to do everything that they can to get that done. And you've seen that with a lot of the player development stuff that they've gotten done to this point. And I think they're at a spot now where they feel like they can now go out and do stuff with the stadium to help the fan atmosphere. And he talked about that some with you guys in the broadcast too. So I think that's also some part of this amendment as well, is just, getting some of the facility stuff upgraded as well on top of what they've already gotten in the pitching lab, and getting the cages enclosed and other stuff underneath. I think with the training room as well got updated last year, and some of the stuff in the locker room as well, and the weight room. So they've had a lot of stuff going on since Link's been here, and this is already the second amendment to Link's contract. The first amendment was when the Texas A&M job came open, when Schlossnagle went to Texas, and his contract was amended shortly after that. That was also following when you went to Omaha. So 2 years in a row that the contract has been amended, and you've locked Link in to stand at FSU, and the contract runs through 2031, which is what it had been amended to in the last one.
Can people stop calling Link? Thank you. Please, that's enough. Quit calling him.
if it'll be interesting to see if Vitello works out, because if it works out, you're going to start.
Opens up a can of worms, man.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing is, you go and see what O'Connor is able to do going from Virginia to Mississippi State in 1 year. Like, you see what a coach like that, when a coach like that is given the SEC resources in baseball, what happens quickly. I mean, it can get scary pretty quick. So you got to have that sort of involvement in baseball with the NIL and the facilities and stuff to be able to compete at the highest level. And I think they're doing the best that they can at this point to do that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting times, no doubt, in college athletics. Quickly, Dodgers, Blue Jays. Who finishes it off? Jays are up 3-2 as of today.
I think the Jays are going to finish it off. I mean, Yamamoto is going to start the next game for the Dodgers. It's Gosman for the Jays, so probably feel good about that on both sides. But it just feels like all the momentum is on the Jays side right now. Dodgers offense is really not doing anything.
No, the bottom of the order.
Outside of Shohei in the game 3, I mean,
it's a rough bottom of the order, man.
Done anything offensively,
and their bullpen's not great.
No, their starters have to go 7.
Yeah, it's just
not crazy because they got through that 18-inning game with the bullpen, but outside of that,
the Jays figured out Shohei's not beating us, and
well, and the Jays are getting Springer back now, so you missed your opportunity with him being out 2 games. You lost both those games.
Yeah,
this whole postseason is kind of gone. Once the Jays went down 2-1, then I was like, well, now the Jays are done. But now I feel like now the Jays are cooking, so now I feel like they're probably going to lose now.
If the Dodgers win Game 6 and force a Game 7, watch how quickly how many people who felt good about the Blue Jays change their mind.
I hope the Dodgers win Game 6 just to force a Game 7.
I want a Game 7. We deserve that.
I hope the Blue Jays win Game 7.
We deserve Game 7. I think the Rogers Center would be going insane for that. So if you're a baseball fan, we're rooting for Game 7. But Brett, Another great episode, man. Appreciate you. Maybe, like we said, we'll do a pod in a couple weeks, get Link on here for an interview and kind of recap the fall. And maybe we can get some videos as well from all their different upgrades that they've done just to kind of share them on Sunday Golds too. I know they've got some different stuff we use on the ESPN broadcast. So we'll do that. All right, man. Good stuff from you. For those of you, please give us 5 stars listening on Apple Pods, on Spotify. Share this with your friends. Like and subscribe. We appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. Brett and I are always like, we're going to do 45 minutes today. And it ends up always going an hour and 10. And that's just
an hour 15.
Yeah, because we love it. We love it a lot. And once we get rolling, it's really hard to stop. So we know you guys love it. We appreciate you guys for listening. Hope you've enjoyed a fall ball series of sorts. And we'll have one more episode before we come back in 2026. So keep an eye out for that. Keep an ear out for that as well, I should say. And Brett, if you got nothing else, I'm ready to sign us out.
I'm good.
All right. For Brett and Evan, I'm Mario Masudi. This has been Sunday Golds.